Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Coffee with Katie. I have a matcha latte today actually with some cold foam. Just living my best life in the summer. Today's video is going to be the audiobook tag. I believe the exact title for it is the Audiobook Era Tag. This tag was created by Jess from Honest Fiction, and when I heard about it, I was super excited because I love audiobooks. You guys know that 90 to 95% of my reading is audiobooks. So I love them, and so I'm very excited to do a tag just talking about all of the audiobooks. So let's just get into it. Question 1 is, what was the first audiobook you ever listened to? And honestly, this one's really hard for me because I've listened to audiobooks even since I was a kid, since I was pretty young, and I was trying to think of the first one I ever listened to, and I don't know if this is the first one, but I think it is, and that would be The Adventures of Hank the Cowdog. I loved listening to Hank the Cowdog growing up. He was so funny and silly and goofy, and I just loved those books so much. So definitely that one. He gets into so many antics and he's so ridiculous, but he thinks he's like the bomb and just so smart. If you read Hank the Cowdog, leave it in a comment down below. I would love to touch base with you about that because that has just like unlocked a memory for me. Question 2 is, who are your favorite narrators? I actually have a lot. I wasn't sure when I was first asked this question, and some of these people I've only just had like one really good audiobook experience with, so like bear that in mind. But one that I love, and I've listened to him for multiple books and things, and every time he narrates something, I love his voice. Even if I don't even like the story, his voice is so awesome. And I love Steve West. He narrates the Ember and the Ashes series. He's Elias. He's also in a bunch of other ones that I've listened to, like, he's Lee, I think, in the Aurelian Cycle trilogy. I love his voice. He could narrate every audiobook with any male perspective and I would be down. I just love his voice. It is so deep and soothing and rough and at times, and just, I love his voice. Steve West, hands down, is probably my favorite narrator ever. I love him. Ben Barnes. I listened to, I think it's like the Saints stories, like the little storybooks where it's like a bunch of stories of saints. He narrated that and it was amazing. I loved that. The next one is also because of Lord of the Rings. I listened to a couple of the Lord of the Rings books narrated by Andy Serkis. He's a phenomenal narrator. Like, he should narrate all kinds of audiobooks, not just Lord of the Rings. I was blown away with how great of a narrator he was. Now, granted, I've only heard him do Lord of the Rings, but he was able to do the voices so well. But just his plain narrating voice was so nice. Truly, if you've never listened to Lord of the Rings and you want to, or you've never listened to Lord of the Rings but you like the story, listen to Andy Serkis's narrations. Oh, they're so good. So good. Another one that this isn't like a repeat one I've heard, but Jacob Morgan did Josh from Lights Out by Nevessa Allen, and I loved his narration because he brought the character to life for me. And he was so, like, awkward and cute and funny. And it was just, his narration, I think, made me like that book. Because he really, like, made the character so lovable and adorable, but dark and brooding, but funny, but red flaggy. Like, he just did such a great job narrating him that I think because of Jacob Morgan's narration is why I ended up having so much enjoyment out of that book. Another new one for me was Samantha Brentmore. She narrated Shield of Sparrows, and I really appreciated the narration of Shield of Sparrows. I liked how she did some inflections with certain things, with like, when things are actually tense, she would ramp up her voice. Some actors don't do that a lot, or they do it in different ways, but I feel like she was very into it. She was able to do that super well. She also did the male voice portrayal really well, to the point where you could almost think it's a male voice. And I really appreciate that as well. I appreciate when they have a lot of depth, they can do a lot of emotion, not necessarily this, but like if it says she screamed and they actually scream or raise their voice. I like it when voice actors do that. So I really appreciated Samantha Brentmore's narration of that book in particular, but I haven't had a lot of experience with her. as well. Rebecca Soler is one that I really enjoy. I think that's kind of a hot take. I feel like a lot of people don't like her narrations. The first one I ever listened to her was Marissa Meyer. She narrates like all Marissa Meyer and Stephanie Garber books. And she did the Renegades trilogy, which is one of the, when I was kind of getting back into reading and before I even started my booktube channel, I listened to those and I really liked her narration. And she's done, like I said, all of Marissa Meyer's works and Stephanie Garber's works thus far, and I really enjoyed all of those. And then she did Fourth Wing as well. So I already knew her when I went into Fourth Wing. So I appreciate her narration, and I really like the way she can bring whimsy to a situation or sass. I like her humor. I really enjoy it. How she does voice acting, how she kind of interacts with characters. I like her voice. Some people don't, and that's okay. But I really enjoy her, and I've also read a lot of series that I have really enjoyed that have been narrated by her, so there's probably a little bit of a connection there in my brain too. But really like her. And I think this is also a hot topic because I like this narrator in the Sarah J. Maas world more than the other one. And I feel like everyone else is on the other side. But I really like Jennifer Akita, who does the original ACOTAR narration. I think her voice is just so soft and calming and soothing that it made my listening experience really enjoyable. And I really like her narration. And the person that does, I can't remember, is it Sarah Evans? She does Crescent City and Throne of Glass. And I don't like her narration as much as I like Jennifer Akita's. There's nothing wrong with her narration. I just prefer the other one. And I also, it was like my first time reading ACOTAR and all this stuff. So I feel like there's connections to that. But it was just, her voice is so nice. So smooth. So nice. I really like it. Another one I really enjoyed was through reading the Murderbot Diaries was Kevin R. Free. I love the way he narrates Murderbot. He's made me laugh out loud so many times. I really enjoy his characterization of Murderbot and the way he like says the lines, delivers them, has like the terror in his voice. Kevin R. Free did a great job narrating those as well, so I really like him. And then last but not least, I wanted to give kind of a shout out to Tim Gerard Reynolds. He narrates Red Rising series, and he has like an Irish type of an accent, and I really like his narration. I really enjoyed listening to the Red Rising books, and because of his narration, I really, like, as soon as he says like his first line in the first book, I was like, oh, I love your voice. And because of that, it was really nice to just have him narrating everything that was going on, because there were a couple of things where I would be like, I didn't like the pacing, or I would get a little bit bored of how slow things were going storyline wise. His voice and the narration really kept me going, kept me interested. So I talked about a lot of narrators, so let's move on. Question 3 is, what audiobook platform do you use? I use several. I had an Audible subscription. I don't have one right now, but I definitely use Audible, and I've got things like in my library that I've purchased from credits and stuff, so I use Audible. I've transitioned to Libro FM for now, which is also really good. It's like a more ethical Audible. You can donate to your local bookstores, which is really cool. So I have like our local bookstore connected to my Libro FM subscription, and it will donate a portion of proceedings to them. I also use Everand. Like I said, I'm a big audiobook person, so I have a lot of platforms, but I also use Everand, which is like a subscription as well. And that one is more like you pay a certain amount and you can unlock credits like for higher value books, but you also get like unlimited reads. So it's nice. But honestly, I utilize Libby a ton, which is connected to your local library. So it's just like a digital portion of your library, and I can get access to a lot of audiobooks that way. So Libby is where it's at, and I use Libby all the time, constantly. Question 4 is, what book did you love on audio that you might not have enjoyed reading physically? And for this, I would absolutely say Lord of the Rings, because I really wanted to read Lord of the Rings, but I was scared about how dense it was. And when it just has like chapters of, Gandalf singing in Elvish, or very page-long descriptions of caves or trees, that stuff in really high fantasy can bore me. I love high fantasy. I love fantasy. I love world building. But sometimes those things can feel so dense and overwhelming that it intimidates me, and then I don't want to read the books. But when I listen to audiobooks, a lot of the time that isn't a problem for me, because I can just be immersed and listen, and I'm not having to get my brain to try to focus on reading the words on the page. Instead, it's just like going in. which is why I read audiobooks a lot, because I will get distracted pretty easily if I'm physically reading. So Lord of the Rings was one I was so intimidated to read, but I really wanted to read. And because I was able to listen to it on audiobook, I think that made my experience a million times better. I loved it. Part of it was the narration of Andy Serkis, but I think I listened to The Fellowship of the Ring. That was a different narrator. Still loved it. So Lord of the Rings for sure. Then question 5 is, what's your go-to audiobook speed? This one, it really depends for me. It depends on the narrator. It depends on how slow they speak. It depends on the accents. It depends on what type of a book it is, if it's contemporary versus high fantasy. There's a lot of variables in that for me. Like, there's been books where I've listened at one point, like just 1 point speed, because the person talked really quickly, or just the way the book was laid out. It's just, I needed to listen at that speed to be able to catch everything. There was another book that I read. I ended up really not liking the book, unfortunately, but then I got to 2.0 speed because they talked so slowly. It was wild. So that one was like an anomaly a little bit, but in general, I will do 1.25 speed if I need that speed to be able to catch everything. But I would say my go-to is usually 1.5. Once I've like gotten into the story and gotten used to it, I can usually ramp it up to 1.5 speed. So 1.5. It's like, it just like started raining like out of nowhere. So I'm sorry if the lighting changed and it just got really dark. Question 6 is, do you prefer single or dual multi-narration? Always dual or multi. I love a full cast of characters. I love having, even if it's just two POVs, if it's like the female and the male, I love having both of them have separate narrations from two separate people. I love having a man narrate a man's voice. I love having one narrate a woman's voice. I love it. I would have a full cast of characters all the time if I could. That's one, I didn't even mention this before, but the Enchanted Forest Chronicles, Dealing with Dragons, all those books, they're multi-narration. They have like a full cast, and I love that so much. It's so enjoyable. It just feels like such a good experience. So fun, like a movie almost. I love it. I'm curious though if any of you prefer single. Let me know that you do, and then let me know why. I would love to know. I'm just curious. Question 7 is, do you listen while multitasking, or do you sit and listen like it's a movie? I do both of these. It really depends on what's going on, but I'm usually multitasking. One of the reasons I do like audiobooks is because I do get distracted and fidgety. So I will go and be able to like do laundry or do a task that I need to get done that doesn't take a lot of like thinking. And I can listen to audiobooks while I do that. I can go to the gym and listen to an audiobook. I can go for a walk and listen to an audiobook. I really prefer that because I can be active. I can do something else. And that's one of the reasons I find it hard for me to sit down and read a book, is because my mind will wander and I'll get distracted, or I want to be doing something with my hands. And so audiobooks allow me to do that. I can eat while I listen to an audiobook. I can shower when I listen to an audiobook. You know, like there's so many things that I can do. I really prefer that. So I do multitask a lot. There are times though where I will sit down to listen to an audiobook, but I still have my hands occupied. So I will build Legos or work on a puzzle or paint something, you know, do something artistic, crafty, or I'll just play games on my phone or something while I'm listening, because it keeps like that portion of my mind and my hands engaged in doing something, but I can listen to the story. And I really prefer those types of things where I can have my hands doing something enjoyable like Legos and still be able to like immerse myself in the story, and I'm listening to everything and paying attention, but I can do something else at the same time. So I really prefer that. Question 8 is, what is your biggest audiobook pet peeve? I couldn't think of a lot of them off the top of my head, but I did think of 2. One of them is when they don't do male or female voices well. So let me kind of explain that a little bit. If it's a female narrator and she's doing a really poor male voice, that irks me. And on the reverse, which I feel like happens often, if a male narrator is doing a female's voice and he's not doing it well, both of those things really irk me and they'll take me out of the story. There's one that I can think of in particular, I remember, that grated on me so bad, and it actually made the reading experience worse, which doesn't happen to me a lot, but it did for this one. It was like All the Stars and Teeth. There was one male perspective that the female was narrating, and the rest of her narration was fine. But there was one character, and she made him sound so whiny and ridiculous, like he was 12. And I just did not like that at all. So if you botch either of those things, oh yeah, on the flip side, if a male is like talking about a woman and he's like, I hate that. So if you can't do male or female voice flips well, don't like that. I also really hate it if they mispronounce words. And I understand, like, if you're reading and narrating all day long, that's gonna happen. I do it sometimes and I don't realize it. Or, like, I do it and then I read it back and I'm like, oh, I can't believe I just mispronounced that. I know what that word is, you know? I know that I've done that too, so it's not like a hating thing. It's just like when you're immersed in the story and that happens and it kind of brings you out of the story, I don't like that. That bothers me. So those two things for sure, I would say. There's probably more, but those are the ones I can think of. Question 9 is, if you could have any book made into an audiobook, what would it be and who would narrate it? For this one, this is hard for me because, like I've already established, audiobook reading is what I read like all the time. So I'm not necessarily going to talk about a book that doesn't already have a narration. But if I could pick any book and pick any narrator to put with that book, I think I would do Vicious by V.E. Schwab and have Steve West narrate it. And have him narrate Victor Vale specifically. Because I love Steve West and Vicious is my favorite book. So I would do that. I'd probably also want Draco Malfoy and the Mortifying Ordeal of Being in Love turned into an audiobook. It might be like some indie audiobook somewhere because it's a fan fiction. But we're also getting that book trad published that's going to have a narration. You know. Question 10 is, what's your all-time favorite audiobook experience? This one's also hard and I had to think of it. But like I had mentioned before, I had an amazing time listening to the Lord of the Rings books that were narrated by Andy Serkis. So I think that was a really fun time. So this one is kind of hard for me to say. But the one that also comes to mind is The Adventures of Amina al-Sarafi by Shannon Chakraborty, because I remember very vividly how much more immersive that book was because it was an audiobook, because there are sections of the book where it's like a flashback and she's telling a story and somebody's telling her how to tell a story and she like goes behind the curtain and she's like, but that's not how it happened. And you can hear the shift it sounds like her voice is muffled when she's talking to that person. And I really appreciate those elements when it comes to audiobooks. So The Adventures of Mina al-Sarafi. Oh, speaking of which, that one just came to mind. A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. That was an amazing audiobook experience because she makes phone calls and the phone will ring and it sounds like she's on the phone, and she'll record interviews with people and you'll hear the recorder being pressed and like the distorted voices. That one was amazingly produced. I loved that audiobook. It was so well done. So that one for sure. That was a fantastic audiobook experience for me. And then question 11 is, have you ever listened to an audiobook that made you pause and say, wait, what did I just hear? Yeah. This again is a wide variety of things it could be. Partially, some of them are because I needed to rewind the book. Like I missed something. I was like, whoa, what happened? I missed something clearly. I just needed to rewind. But there have also been moments where I've been like, huh? Like, I think there was a moment when I read Six of Crows, when I was listening to Six of Crows, and Kaz was doing some sort of torture method on a person, and I had to be like, huh? What just happened? Did I just hear what I thought I heard? And I had to rewind and be like, he did just pluck his eyeball out. Because it was so nonchalant or something the way it was done in the book. And I know I've had this experience with romance books where I'm like, I did not just hear that, and it kind of grossed me out, honestly, but there have been those moments, yes. Good or bad. Interesting or not. But I also, sometimes, the Kaz Brecker one was not. I actually thought that was a really interesting part of the story, but sometimes when that happens, though, I'm, like, kind of grossed out, and it takes me out of the story for a minute, and I'm like, ew. I don't love that, but to each their own. The last question is just to tag some friends, and if you're watching this and you love audiobooks and would like to participate in this, please consider yourself tagged. I want to hear people's answers to these questions. I can link Jess from Honest Fiction's video down below. I also watched Becky from Bex Reads video about this, and I loved that, so I can link that one too. But I love audiobooks. I'm like the biggest audiobook supporter, so listen to audiobooks. It's very fun. And Jess, thank you so much for making this tag. I really enjoyed it, had a great time. But that is it for today's video. Please like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I will see you next time. Stay safe and caffeinated. Bye.